Blood dripped onto white tile. The shattered cup lay in pieces at her feet, just like everything else in her life. What happens when the girl nobody sees catches the eye of a man who's been watching her for years? When rescue feels like captivity and obsession wears the mask of protection. This is a story about power, possession, and the thin line between salvation and surrender. Stay until the end. Like this video and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you about the night Lila Hart's invisible life ended. The bakery's fluorescent lights hummed their usual migraine-inducing frequency as Lila Hart wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. Her hands moved on autopilot, left to right, circular motions on the stubborn spots, back again. The white rag had turned gray hours ago, but Mrs. Chen hadn't brought out a clean one, and Lila had learned not to ask for things. Asking meant being noticed. Being noticed meant being yelled at. Being yelled at meant her shift stretched 30 minutes longer without extra pay. So she kept her head down, her mouth shut, and her hands moving. "Girl, the trash!" Lila flinched. Mrs. Chen's voice could cut through steel when she wanted it to, and she always wanted it to. The old woman stood in the kitchen doorway, her apron stained with flour and what might have been raspberry filling or might have been blood. Lila had stopped trying to tell the difference months ago. "Yes, ma'am." Lila abandoned the rag and grabbed the overstuffed trash bag from behind the counter. It reeked of spoiled milk and yesterday's burned croissants. She hefted it with both hands, feeling something wet seep through the plastic onto her palm. Perfect. Another thing to wash off in the bathroom sink. If she was lucky, she'd have 2 minutes before the evening rush. Lucky. Right, the alley behind Pearl Street Bakery was the kind of place movies used to establish that a character had hit rock bottom. Dumpsters overflowing with garbage, puddles that never quite dried even in summer, graffiti tags layering over each other like archaeological records of urban decay. Lila had memorized every crack in the pavement, every broken bottle, every rat that scattered when she approached. She heaved the bag into the dumpster with more force than necessary, imagining it was her life she was throwing away. The fantasy lasted exactly 3 seconds before reality crashed back. Her life wasn't the kind you could throw away. It was the kind that clung to you, sticky and suffocating, no matter how hard you tried to scrub it off. The cut on her thumb from yesterday's broken glass throbbed. She'd wrapped it in a Band-Aid she'd stolen from the gas station down the street. Stealing from the place that employed her guardian felt like poetic justice. But it was starting to bleed through. She needed to change it. She needed a lot of things. New shoes. The soles of her sneakers had worn through last month, and she could feel every pebble, every crack, every piece of broken glass the city had to offer. New clothes. The jeans she wore had been patched so many times they were more thread than denim. Food that wasn't day-old pastries. Mrs. Chen let her take home out of pity rather than kindness. A future. That would be nice too. "You think you can stand around daydreaming all day? I'm not paying you to look at trash." Lila turned to find Mrs. Chen leaning out the back door, her face twisted in its permanent expression of disapproval. The woman was in her 70s but had the energy of someone half her age, especially when it came to finding fault. "I'm coming." Lila jogged back toward the door, her worn sneakers squelching in something she didn't want to identify. The evening rush was exactly as miserable as every evening rush before it. A parade of customers who looked through her rather than at her, who snapped their orders and checked their phones while she bagged their overpriced bread, who left their change in the tip jar like they were doing charity work. Maybe they were. Lila Hart, 18 years old, high school graduate by the skin of her teeth, poster child for the American dream gone wrong. Work hard, stay quiet, keep your head down, and maybe, you'll claw your way into a slightly less terrible version of terrible. Miss! Lila blinked. A woman in a business suit was snapping her fingers in front of Lila's face. "I said I wanted that heated. Are you deaf?" "No, ma'am, sorry." Lila took back the blueberry scone and headed to the small oven behind the counter. Her hands shook as she placed it on the tray. When had she last eaten? Breakfast had been half a bagel she'd found in the day-old bin. Lunch had been nothing because Mrs. Chen had been watching the register like a hawk. Dinner would probably be nothing too, unless Marcus was sober enough to remember to buy groceries, which he wouldn't be. The scone burned her fingers when she pulled it out. She bit back a yelp and plated it with the kind of forced smile she'd perfected over the last year. "Here you go. Is there anything else I can get for you?" The woman was already walking away, phone pressed to her ear, leaving Lila's question hanging in the air like cigarette smoke. Story of her life. By 8 o'clock, her feet felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to them. By 9, she couldn't tell if she was standing or if her body had just locked into position out of sheer spite. By 10, when Mrs. Chen finally flipped the sign to closed, Lila had achieved a state beyond exhaustion, something transcendent and horrible, where her brain had disconnected from her body and was floating somewhere near the ceiling, watching this pathetic girl pretend she wasn't 3 steps from collapsing. Clean the espresso machine, restock the display, sweep the floor, lock up when you're done. Mrs. Chen didn't wait for a response. She never did. The woman grabbed her purse and was out the door before Lila could form words anyway. Lock up when you're done. Right. Because Lila was trusted with the keys but not trusted with a livable wage. The math made perfect sense in Mrs. Chen's world. Lila tackled the espresso machine first. The thing was a beast, all chrome and complicated parts that she'd never been properly trained to clean. She'd figured it out through trial and error, emphasis on error. The first time she'd taken it apart, she'd broken something important and spent an hour in the bathroom crying because she knew Mrs. Chen would dock her pay. She'd fixed it eventually. YouTube videos and desperation made for decent teachers. The display case was easier. Pull out the trays, wipe them down, rearrange tomorrow's pastries so they looked fresher than they were. She was sliding the last tray back into place when her elbow caught the edge of a coffee cup someone had left on the counter. Time slowed down. The cup tipped. Lila lunged for it. Her fingers grazed the ceramic. It tumbled anyway, spinning through the air like it was performing in some kind of tragic ballet. Then it hit the tile and exploded. Shards everywhere, brown liquid spreading across the floor, and Lila, frozen, staring at the mess like it was a crime scene. It was a crime scene. Evidence of her carelessness. Proof that she couldn't do anything right. She dropped to her knees and started grabbing pieces. Big ones first, then smaller ones. Her hands moved frantically, trying to erase the mistake before it became permanent. The sharp edge of a shard bit into her palm. Damn it! Blood welled up immediately, mixing with the spilled coffee. Lila pressed her other hand over the cut, but blood seeped between her fingers, warm and accusatory. She sat back on her heels, suddenly too tired to cry. What was the point? The cup was broken. Her hand was bleeding. Mrs. Chen would probably make her pay for the cup. Just another bill she couldn't afford, another weight added to the pile crushing her chest. The bell above the door chimed. Lila's head snapped up. We're closed. But her voice died in her throat because the man who just walked in wasn't a customer. Customers didn't wear $1,000 suits at 10:30 on a Tuesday. Customers didn't move like predators. All controlled grace and barely contained power. Customers didn't look at her the way this man was looking at her, like she was the only thing in the room worth seeing. He was young, mid-20s maybe. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in magazines, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry. But it was his eyes that pinned her in place. Gray, cold, assessing. I said we're closed. Lila tried again, but the words came out weak. Blood dripped from her hand onto the tile, adding to the mess. I know. His voice matched his appearance. Expensive, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't ask permission. You're bleeding. I'm fine. You're not. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. Suddenly he was crouching in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something dark and woody that probably cost more than her rent. Let me see. I said I'm fine. Lila tried to pull her hand away, but he caught her wrist. His grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute. There was no breaking free unless he let her. You've cut yourself on broken glass. Let me see. There was something in his tone, not quite command, not quite concern, that made her stop struggling. She uncurled her fingers, revealing the gash across her palm. It was deeper than she'd thought. Blood flowed steadily, dripping onto his expensive suit. He didn't seem to notice. You need stitches. Not a suggestion, a statement of fact. I need to clean up this mess and get home. That can wait. No, it really can't. Lila finally jerked her hand free, cradling it against her chest. Look, I don't know who you are or what you want, but the bakery is closed. You need to leave. Adrian Voss. He said it like she should know the name. Like it should mean something. It didn't. Good for you. I'm Lila, and I'm asking you to leave. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You don't recognize me. Should I? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. No, I suppose you shouldn't. He stood, and Lila was struck by how much space he took up. Not physically. He was tall but not huge, but in presence. The air seemed to bend around him, acknowledging his existence in a way it never acknowledged hers. Come with me. Lila blinked. Excuse me? To the hospital. For stitches. I can't afford. I'll pay. I don't need. Yes, you do. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, and slid it back into his pocket with the easy confidence of someone who'd never had to count pennies. My car is outside. I'm not getting in a car with a stranger. Then I'll wait while you clean up, and we'll take the ambulance I've already called. Lila's mouth fell open. You what? You're injured. You need medical attention. I've ensured you'll receive it. He said it like he was explaining basic math to a child. Cancel it. I can't afford an ambulance. Do you have any idea how much those cost? I do. That almost smile again. And I told you, I'll pay. Why? The question burst out of her, sharp with confusion and exhaustion and the surreal nature of this entire conversation. Why do you care? For a moment, something flickered in those gray eyes. Something she couldn't name but could feel. A weight, an intensity, a truth that pressed against her skin like humidity before a storm. Because, Adrian Voss said quietly, I've watched you suffer long enough. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and terrifying. What? But sirens were already wailing in the distance, growing closer. Lila looked at the blood dripping from her hand, at the shattered cup scattered across the floor, at this stranger who somehow knew she'd been suffering. Her legs gave out. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground, one arm around her waist, solid and sure. She should have fought, should have screamed, should have done anything except what she did, which was sag against him like a puppet with cut strings. Easy. His voice was different now, softer, almost gentle. When did you last eat? Lila tried to remember. This morning? Yesterday? Time had a way of blurring when every day was the same shade of gray. That's what I thought. He adjusted his grip, and suddenly she was being lifted, carried like she weighed nothing, like she wasn't a whole person but just another problem he could solve with money and decisive action. Put me down. No. I can walk. You can barely stand. The worst part was he was right. Her body had given up somewhere between exhaustion and blood loss, and whatever this situation was, she'd spent so long running on empty that her tank had finally cracked. The paramedics arrived in a flurry of efficiency. Within minutes, Lila found herself sitting on the back of an ambulance, hand being cleaned and assessed by a woman who kept asking her questions she couldn't quite focus on. Adrian stood off to the side, talking quietly on his phone, handling things, making decisions, taking control of a situation that had been spiraling since the moment that cup had fallen. No, since before that. Since she'd been born into a life that chewed people up and spit them out. Since her mother had died when she was 12. Since Marcus had turned to alcohol instead of grief counseling. Since she'd become invisible to everyone except the people who needed her labor. You'll need stitches, the paramedic confirmed. We can take you to Memorial, or she's coming with me. Adrian was back, his phone away, his attention fully on Lila. The paramedic looked between them, clearly trying to figure out their relationship. Good luck. Lila was trying to figure it out too. Sir, are you family? No. Adrian pulled out his wallet, extracted a card, handed it to the paramedic. Whatever she saw made her eyebrows climb toward her hairline. I'll ensure she receives the best care possible. You have my word. The paramedic glanced at Lila. Is this okay with you, hun? Was it? Should she get into a car with this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere and was now reorganizing her life with surgical precision? But what was the alternative? Go to the hospital alone, rack up a bill she'd never pay off, go home to Marcus and his empty bottles, wake up tomorrow and do it all again? Yeah, her voice sounded far away. It's okay. That was how Lila Hart found herself in the back of a car that cost more than everything she'd ever owned combined. Leather seats that felt like butter, climate control that actually worked, a driver in the front who didn't speak or make eye contact. Adrian sat beside her, close but not touching, watching her with that same intense focus. What did you mean? Lila asked. Her hand throbbed under the temporary bandage. When you said you've watched me suffer? Exactly what it sounds like. That's insane. Is it? He turned slightly, giving her his full attention. You work 70-hour weeks at that bakery for minimum wage. You walk home because you can't afford bus fare. You live in a one-bedroom apartment with Marcus Wright, who drinks away his disability checks and hasn't held a job in 2 years. You eat maybe one meal a day. You... Stop. Lila's voice cracked. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know things. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a bottle of water, twisted off the cap, handed it to her. Drink. She wanted to throw it at him, wanted to demand real answers, wanted to understand what was happening and why this man knew things about her life that no one should know. But she was so thirsty, she drank. The hospital was private, the kind of place that didn't have waiting rooms full of sick people and flickering fluorescent lights, the kind of place where they ushered her into a private room immediately, where a doctor appeared within minutes, where everything was clean and quiet and surreal. Adrian stayed the entire time, stood in the corner while they stitched her hand, 7 neat sutures that pulled the skin back together, signed papers she didn't read, handed over a credit card that the nurse accepted with the kind of reverent care usually reserved for holy relics. You should eat, he said, when they finally released her. It was past midnight now. Her shift had ended 2 hours ago. Mrs. Chen would kill her tomorrow for not locking up properly. I should go home. After you eat. I'm not hungry. Her stomach chose that moment to growl, loud enough that they both heard it. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Satisfaction? There's a restaurant 2 blocks from here. They know me. Of course they do. This time he definitely smiled. Small, barely there, but real. Come. Lila should have said no, should have demanded to be taken home, should have done a lot of things that made sense. Instead, she followed him. The restaurant was the kind that didn't have prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Dark wood, soft lighting, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private. The host took one look at Adrian and practically tripped over himself to seat them. Your usual room, Mr. Voss? Please. They were led to a private dining area, separated from the main restaurant by frosted glass doors that closed with a soft click. Suddenly, it was just the 2 of them, sitting across from each other in a space that felt both intimate and dangerous. A waiter appeared, poured water, left menus. Order whatever you want, Adrian said. Lila looked at the menu. Nothing had prices. Everything sounded fancy and foreign. She had no idea what half of it was. I don't... She stopped, swallowed. I don't know what to order. Do you trust me? No. Another small smile. Fair enough. He ordered for both of them, speaking in rapid French that made the waiter nod enthusiastically. When the man left, Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her with that unnerving intensity. You can ask, you know. Ask what? Your questions. All the things you're dying to know. Lila had about 1,000 questions. She picked the most important one. Why me? Why not you? That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It's not. The food arrived in waves, small plates with things she'd never seen before, arranged like art. She probably should have hesitated, but her body took over. She ate like someone who hadn't seen real food in weeks. Because she hadn't. Adrian barely touched his plate, just watched her, occasionally sipping his wine, saying nothing. You're staring, Lila said around a mouthful of something that might have been duck. I am. It's weird. I'm sure it is. Are you going to explain any of this? Would you believe me if I did? Lila set down her fork. Her hand ached under the fresh bandages. Her head spun from wine she hadn't meant to drink but had anyway because it was good and she was tired and nothing made sense. "Try me." Adrian set down his wine glass, leaned forward. When he spoke, his voice was low and measured, each word chosen with care. "I saw you for the first time 3 years ago. You were 15, sitting outside that bakery on your break, eating a piece of bread so stale you had to tear it into small pieces to chew. You were reading a book, some romance novel with a torn cover. You looked up when I walked past, and for exactly 2 seconds, you smiled at me." Lila's breath caught. She didn't remember that. Didn't remember him. How could she not remember? "I had meetings that day, important ones. Millions of dollars in deals that needed my attention. I couldn't focus on any of them. I kept thinking about you. The girl outside the bakery who smiled at strangers even though she was eating garbage. The girl who found joy in a damaged book. That's not..." Lila shook her head. "That's creepy. You know that's creepy, right?" "I know what it is." No apology in his tone, just statement of fact. "I looked into you. Found out about your mother, about Marcus, about the way you worked yourself to exhaustion just to keep the lights on. I saw how invisible you were to everyone around you, how you moved through the world like you were apologizing for taking up space. Stop. And I decided," he continued as if she hadn't spoken, "that if no one else was going to take care of you, I would." The room tilted. Lila gripped the edge of the table, trying to anchor herself to something real. "What does that mean?" "It means I've been paying attention, making sure you were safe, intervening when necessary." "Intervening how?" "The landlord who wanted to evict you last year? I bought the building. You stay as long as you want, rent frozen. The police officer who pulled Marcus over drunk? I made sure he got a warning instead of jail time. The college scholarship you applied for senior year? I funded it. You would have gotten in." "Would have. Why would I have gotten in?" The words came out sharp. Past tense. "What did you do?" Adrian's expression didn't change. "You never finished your application." Because she'd been working double shifts to pay for Marcus's hospital bills after he'd fallen down the stairs drunk. Because she'd been too exhausted to dream about futures that weren't meant for girls like her. "You had no right." Her voice shook. "You had no right to interfere in my life." "I had every right." He leaned forward, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. Someone needed to care whether you lived or died. It might as well be me. "You don't even know me. I know you better than anyone." "You're insane." "Probably." He didn't sound bothered by the assessment. "But I'm also right. Look at your life, Lila. Look at what you've been surviving. You work yourself to death for people who don't see you. You go home to a guardian who drinks away your hope. You eat scraps and wear rags and act like this is normal, like you don't deserve more. You deserve everything." The words cut through the air like a blade. "And I'm going to give it to you." Lila pushed back from the table. The chair scraped against the floor, too loud in the quiet room. "I need to leave." "Sit down." "Don't tell me what to do." "Lila." Her name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a command all at once. "Sit. Down." She should have walked out, should have run. Should have done anything except what she did, which was sink back into her chair like he'd yanked her strings. "I'm not keeping you here," Adrian said quietly. "If you want to leave, you can. The door isn't locked. I'll have my driver take you home. You never have to see me again." Relief flooded through her. "But before you go," he continued, "I want you to think about something. What are you going home to? What's waiting for you in that life you're so desperate to get back to? That's none of your..." Marcus passed out on the couch, surrounded by empty bottles. Bills piled on the counter that you can't pay. A mattress on the floor that's more springs than cushion. No food in the fridge. No heat in the winter. No air in the summer. No future. No hope. Just endless grinding poverty that will swallow you whole. Each word landed like a punch. Because he was right. That was exactly what waited for her. "I'm offering you a choice," Adrian said. "Come with me. Let me take care of you the way you should have been taken care of all along. Or go back to that life and we'll pretend this never happened." "Come with you where?" "My home." "To do what?" "Whatever you want." He spread his hands. Sleep, eat, rest, exist without fighting for every breath. I'm not asking for anything in return. Not tonight. Just let me take care of you. It was a trap. Had to be a trap. Men like him, wealthy, powerful, obsessed, didn't offer kindness without expectations. But what if he did? What if this was her chance to breathe, even just for a night? One night, Lila heard herself say. I'll stay one night, then I go home. Adrian's smile was small but genuine. One night. He was lying, they both knew it, but Lila was too tired to care. The car ride to his home took 20 minutes, leaving the city center behind for a neighborhood where the streetlights actually worked and the houses had gates. Adrian's home turned out to be an estate, a modern fortress of glass and steel that rose 3 stories into the night sky. You live here alone? Lila asked as they pulled through the security gate. I do now. She didn't ask what that meant. Inside was just as impossible as outside. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 lifetimes. Everything pristine and perfect and completely surreal. You must be exhausted, Adrian said, leading her up a curved staircase. The guest room is this way. The guest room was bigger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed with sheets that looked like they'd never been slept in. Attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. A wall of windows overlooking the city, all those lights twinkling like false promises. There are clothes in the closet, Adrian said from the doorway. They should fit. The bathroom is stocked with anything you might need. If you want food or drink, press the intercom by the bed. Someone will bring it. Someone? I have staff. They're discreet. Of course he did. Of course they were. Lila? He waited until she looked at him. You're safe here. I give you my word. Why should I trust your word? You shouldn't. He smiled that small smile again. But you're going to anyway. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving her alone in this beautiful cage. Lila stood in the center of the room, heart pounding, mind racing. She should leave, should climb out the window, scale down the building, run back to her real life. But her body had other ideas. She found the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stood under water that was actually hot for the first time in months. Watched the dirt and exhaustion and dried blood swirl down the drain. Used soap that smelled like lavender and left her skin feeling clean instead of raw. The clothes in the closet did fit. Perfectly. Like they'd been bought specifically for her. They had been. She knew they had been. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, as she climbed into the softest bed she'd ever felt and pulled the covers up to her chin, all she felt was a dangerous kind of relief. Maybe just for tonight, she could stop fighting. Maybe just for tonight, she could pretend someone actually cared whether she lived or died. Maybe just for tonight, she could be something other than invisible. Lila closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. In his study 3 floors down, Adrian Voss poured himself a drink and watched the security feed showing Lila's room. Watched her finally rest. Watched her chest rise and fall with deep, peaceful breaths. 3 years he'd waited. 3 years of watching, protecting, preparing. She'd said one night, he'd give her that lie if it made her feel safer. But they both knew the truth. One night would turn into 2, 2 into a week into forever. Because now that he finally had her here, in his home, under his protection, he was never letting her go. Lila woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize and sheets that didn't smell like mildew. For 3 disoriented seconds, she thought she'd died. Then reality crashed back with the weight of a freight train. Adrian Voss. The bakery. Her bleeding hand. One night, she'd said. Just one night. She sat up too fast, and her head spun. The stitches in her palm pulled when she pressed her hand against the mattress. 7 neat sutures holding her together, just like everything else in this place. Controlled, precise, expensive. The clock on the nightstand read 11:47 a.m. No. Lila threw off the covers and stumbled out of bed. She'd missed her shift. Mrs. Chen was going to fire her. Marcus would lose it when he found out she hadn't come home. Everything was falling apart, and she was standing in a stranger's guest room wearing clothes that fit too perfectly. She needed to leave. Now. The door opened before she reached it. A woman in her 50s stood in the hallway, carrying a tray laden with food. She wore a simple gray dress and had the kind of face that gave nothing away, pleasant but professional. "Good morning, Miss Hart. I'm Eleanor. Mr. Voss asked me to bring you breakfast when you woke." "I need to leave." "Of course. After you eat." Eleanor moved past her into the room like she owned it, setting the tray on a small table by the window. The smell of fresh coffee and warm bread made Lila's stomach clench with hunger. "You don't understand. I have to go. I have work. Mr. Voss has already spoken with Mrs. Chen. He explained that you had a medical emergency and will be taking the week off." Lila's blood went cold. "He what?" "He also paid her for the broken cup and compensated her for any inconvenience." Eleanor poured coffee into a delicate china cup. She was quite understanding, actually. "That's not... He can't just..." Lila's hands clenched into fists. The stitches pulled again, sharp and insistent. "Where is he?" "In his office. But you should eat first." "I don't want to eat first. I want to talk to him right now." Eleanor's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened. "Miss Hart, when was the last time you had a proper meal?" "That's none of your business." "Perhaps not, but Mr. Voss made it mine." She gestured to the chair. "Sit, eat. Then I'll take you to him." Lila wanted to argue, wanted to push past this woman and storm through the house until she found Adrian and gave him a piece of her mind. But the food smelled so good, and her body was staging a rebellion against her pride. She sat. Eleanor didn't leave, just stood by the window, hands folded, watching the city below while Lila ate like she was being timed. Scrambled eggs that melted on her tongue, toast with real butter, fresh fruit that tasted like it had been picked that morning, coffee so good it almost made her forget she was furious. Almost. "Why are you really here?" Lila asked between bites. "To make sure I don't steal the silverware?" "To make sure you're all right." "I'm fine." "You're not." Eleanor turned from the window. "But you will be." There was something in the way she said it, certain, final, that made Lila's skin prickle. Like this woman knew something Lila didn't. Like the future had already been written and Lila was just catching up. "How long have you worked for him?" 15 years. "Is he always like this?" "Like what?" "Controlling, obsessive, completely insane." Eleanor's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Mr. Voss is focused. When he wants something, he doesn't stop until he has it." "That's not reassuring." "It wasn't meant to be." Eleanor collected the empty dishes. "Are you finished?" Lila stood, her borrowed clothes feeling like a costume. "Take me to him." Adrian's office was on the 3rd floor, behind a heavy oak door that Eleanor knocked on twice before opening. The room beyond was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds, shelves lined with books that looked actually read. Adrian sat behind a massive desk, phone pressed to his ear, eyes on a laptop screen. He held up one finger when they entered. "Wait," and continued his conversation in rapid-fire Mandarin. Eleanor withdrew, closing the door with a soft click that felt too much like a cell locking. Lila stood in the center of the room and waited. Counted to 60, then to 100. Adrian kept talking, kept typing, kept ignoring her with the kind of casual disregard that made her blood boil. She cleared her throat. He didn't look up. She cleared it louder. He held up that finger again. "You know what?" Lila walked straight to his desk and slammed her bandaged hand down on the wood. "I'm done waiting." Adrian's eyes snapped to hers. He said something sharp into the phone, then ended the call without breaking eye contact. Set the phone down with deliberate care. Closed his laptop with the same measured precision. "Good morning." "Don't good morning me. You had no right to call my boss. You had no right to make decisions about my life without asking me first. You were sleeping, so wake me up." You needed rest more than you needed to wake up in a panic about a job that's slowly killing you. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with that infuriating calm. "Mrs. Chen accepted my explanation. Your position is secure. What's the problem?" "The problem is you can't just..." Lila pressed her hands to her temples, trying to organize the chaos in her head. "You don't get to decide what I need. You don't get to reorganize my life because you think you know better." "I do know better." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Lila?" He stood, moving around the desk with that predator's grace. That you want to go back to that bakery and work yourself to death? That you want to go home to Marcus and his empty bottles? That you want to pretend last night didn't happen and everything is fine? I want my life back. Your life is here now. The words hung between them, heavy and absolute. Lila took a step back. I said one night. You did. So I'm leaving. Are you? Adrian moved closer, not threatening, just present, taking up space in a way that made the room feel smaller. Where will you go? Back to that apartment where the heat doesn't work, back to eating scraps and wearing rags, back to being invisible? At least it's mine. Is it? He tilted his head. Or are you just surviving in someone else's story, playing a role you never auditioned for? Stop talking in riddles. I'm not. He reached out and she flinched. He froze, hands suspended between them. I'm not going to hurt you. You already are. This whole thing, kidnapping me, interfering in my life, acting like you own me. I haven't kidnapped you. The door's unlocked. You can leave whenever you want. His hand dropped. But I think we both know you won't. You don't know anything about me. I know you're exhausted. I know you're scared. I know you've been running on fumes for so long you've forgotten what it feels like to just breathe. His voice softened. I know that last night, for the first time in years, you slept through the night without waking up in a panic. Lila's breath caught, because he was right. She had slept. Deeply, dreamlessly, the kind of sleep she hadn't experienced since before her mother died. That doesn't give you the right. I'm not talking about rights. I'm talking about reality. Adrian gestured to the windows, to the world beyond. Out there you're drowning. In here you can breathe. It's that simple. Nothing about this is simple. No, he agreed, but it could be, if you let it. Let what? Let you control my life? Let you make all my decisions? Let you... She stopped, swallowed hard. What do you even want from me? The question seemed to surprise him. Or maybe it didn't, and he was just deciding how to answer. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but certain. Everything. Lila's heart hammered against her ribs. That's insane. I've already admitted I'm probably insane. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. But I'm also honest. I want you here, Lila. I want to take care of you. I want to give you everything you've been denied. And yes, I want you to stay. For how long? As long as you'll let me. And if I say no, then I'll have my driver take you home. I'll make sure you're safe. I'll keep my distance. He paused. But I won't stop watching. I won't stop making sure you're okay. Because someone has to. It should have been creepy. Should have sent her running for the door. But there was something in his eyes, something raw and almost desperate, that made her pause. Why me? She asked again. You're rich, powerful. You could have anyone. Why obsess over some girl from a bakery? Because you smiled at me when you had every reason not to. Because you find joy in damaged things. Because you survive when you should break. He took a breath. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth saving. I don't need saving. Everyone needs saving from something. He moved closer, and this time she didn't back away. Let me be yours. This is crazy. Yes. You're asking me to just, what? Move in? Play house with a stranger? I'm asking you to stay for a week, 7 days. Let me prove that this could work. And after 7 days, you decide. If you want to leave, I'll let you go. No arguments, no manipulation. Your choice. Lila studied his face, looking for the lie, but all she saw was that same intense focus, like she was the only thing in the world worth his attention. What do I have to do? During this week? Nothing. Rest, eat, exist. Let yourself be taken care of for once in your life. That's it? That's it. It was too easy. Had to be a trap. But the alternative was going back to Mrs. Chen and Marcus and that tiny apartment where Hope went to die. 7 days. What could 7 days hurt? Fine. The word came out before she could stop it. 1 week. Then I'm gone. Adrian's smile was small but genuine. 1 week. He was lying again. They both knew it. But Lila was starting to think she might be okay with that. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of comfort so foreign it felt like wearing someone else's skin. Lila woke when she wanted, ate food that actually tasted good, wore clothes that fit. Eleanor appeared at regular intervals with meals and small talk that never quite became conversation. The house was huge enough that Lila could avoid Adrian for hours at a time, exploring rooms that felt more like museum exhibits than living spaces. But avoiding him didn't mean she stopped thinking about him. He was everywhere and nowhere. Sometimes she'd catch glimpses, standing in the garden on a phone call, sitting in the library reading reports, emerging from his office with that focused expression that meant he'd just made someone a lot of money or cost them everything. He never pushed, never demanded her time, never made her feel trapped, which somehow made it worse. On the fourth morning, Lila found him in the kitchen, actually cooking, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly mussed, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. "You cook?" The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Adrian glanced up from whatever he was doing to the eggs. "I have many hidden talents." "That's not comforting." "It wasn't meant to be." He gestured to the counter. "Coffee's fresh. Sit." "I can make my own coffee." "I know you can, but I'm already here and you look like you need it." Lila wanted to argue, wanted to prove she didn't need anything from him. But the coffee did smell good and her defenses were running low. She sat. Adrian slid a mug across the counter, then returned to the eggs. They cooked in silence for a few minutes, the kind of quiet that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "Can I ask you something?" Lila wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her palms. "You can ask. I may not answer." "Fair enough." She watched him work, the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "What do you actually do? For work?" "I buy things that are broken and fix them." "That's vague." "It's accurate." He plated the eggs, added toast, set everything in front of her before making his own plate. "I acquire failing companies, restructure them, make them profitable. Sometimes I keep them. Sometimes I sell them. Depends on whether they're worth saving." And you get to decide that? What's worth saving?" "Someone has to." Lila picked up her fork. The eggs were perfect. Of course they were. "That's a lot of power." "Yes." "Doesn't it bother you, deciding people's fates? Would it bother you more if I let everything fail?" He sat across from her, close enough that she could see the gray flecks in his eyes. "The companies I buy are already dying. The people working for them are already losing. I give them a chance. Not everyone takes it, but that's their choice. Like me. Like you." He took a bite of toast. "Except you're not a failing company. You're a person who's been failed by everyone who should have protected you." "You don't know that. Your mother died when you were 12. Your father was never in the picture. Marcus became your guardian because he was your mother's brother, but he was already drinking. He got worse after she died. The state should have stepped in, but you learned to hide the bruises and keep the lights on, and make yourself invisible so no one would look too close." Lila's fork clattered to the plate. "How do you know about the bruises?" Adrian's expression hardened. "I make it my business to know everything." "He doesn't hit me anymore. Not since I turned 16 and threatened to call the cops." "But he did hit you." Not a question. A statement of fact that made something dangerous flash in Adrian's eyes. "He put his hands on you when you were a child, and no one stopped him." "He was drunk. He didn't mean—" "Don't." Adrian's voice cut like glass. "Don't make excuses for him. He's a grown man who hurt a child in his care. There's no excuse for that." "You don't understand. He was grieving. My mom was his sister. I don't care, Adrian stood and suddenly the kitchen felt smaller. "I don't care what he was going through. I don't care about his pain. He was the adult. You were the child. He failed you." "And what are you doing?" Lila stood too, anger flooding through her. "Obsessing over me for 3 years? Stalking me? Interfering in my life without permission? How is that better?" "Because I've never hurt you." His voice was quiet but absolute. "I've watched. I've protected. I've made sure you were safe even when you didn't know I existed. But I have never laid a hand on you in anger. You've taken away my choice. No, I've given you options you didn't have before." He moved closer, and she held her ground. "Look at where you are, Lila. Look at what you have here. I'm not asking you to give up your freedom. I'm offering you a different kind of life. A life where you control everything. A life where you don't have to fight for every breath. He stopped just short of touching her. I'm not Marcus. I'm not Mrs. Chen. I'm not anyone who's ever used you or hurt you or made you feel small. I'm someone who sees you exactly as you are and wants to give you the world. Why? The question came out raw. Why do you even care? Because someone should. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. Because you deserve to be seen. Lila's breath caught. His fingers were warm against her cheek, his touch so careful it made her chest ache. This is insane, she whispered. Yes, I should leave. Probably. But I'm not going to. I know. His thumb traced her cheekbone. 3 more days. Then you decide. What if I decide wrong? There is no wrong, only what you choose. Lila closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every instinct screaming at her to run. You make it sound so simple, Sek. It is simple. Do you want to go back to that life? Or do you want to stay here and see what this could be? When she opened her eyes, he was watching her with that same intense focus, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve, like she mattered. I don't know yet. That's okay. He dropped his hand, stepped back, giving her space to breathe. You have time. But they both knew time was running out. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She lay in the too soft bed, staring at the ceiling, mind racing with questions that had no good answers. What was she doing here? Why was she staying? What did Adrian really want from her? Everything, he'd said. What did that even mean? She threw off the covers and padded to the window. The estate grounds stretched out below, perfectly manicured, every hedge trimmed, every path lit. Even the landscaping was controlled here. A knock on her door made her jump. It's me, Adrian's voice muffled through the wood. Can I come in? Lila should have said no, should have told him to leave her alone, should have locked the door and gone back to bed. Yeah. He entered carrying 2 mugs, steam rising from both. He'd changed into casual clothes, jeans and a t-shirt that made him look younger, more approachable, almost normal. Couldn't sleep either. He offered her one of the mugs. What is it? Hot chocolate, with those little marshmallows you like. Lila took the mug, frowning. How did you know I like marshmallows? You used to buy hot chocolate from the coffee shop next to the bakery. Always asked for extra marshmallows. He moved to the window, looking out at the same view she'd been watching. You'd sit on the bench outside and read while you drank it. Made the cup last 30 minutes. Because it was expensive and I wanted to savor it. I know. He sipped his own drink. That's when I realized how much you appreciated small things, how you found joy in moments most people rush through. You really did watch me. I told you I did. It's still creepy. Yes. No apology, just acknowledgement. But I won't lie about it. I won't pretend this started any way except obsession. Lila joined him at the window, keeping space between them. What happens after the week if I stay? We figure it out together. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He turned to face her. I can't promise this will be easy. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise I'll never hurt you. I can promise you'll always be safe with me. And I can promise that if you give me a chance, I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice. And if I don't? If I choose to leave? Then I keep my word. You go home. I stay away. His jaw tightened. But I'll still make sure you're safe. I'll still watch from a distance, because I can't not care about what happens to you. That's not healthy. Probably not. But it's honest. He set his mug on the windowsill. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm obsessive, controlling, used to getting what I want. But what I want is for you to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me. Lila studied him, this man who'd upended her life with his confession and his money and his overwhelming presence. He looked tired, human, like maybe he was just as lost as she was. Can I ask you something else? Always. What happens if I stay and it doesn't work? What if we try this and I hate it? Then you leave. No conditions, no consequences. You walk away and I let you go. You promise? I promise. He met her eyes. I want you here, Lila. I want you to choose me, choose this life. But I want you to choose it freely. A choice made under duress isn't a choice at all. But then why did you bring me here? Why not just ask? Because you would have said no. Because you've been surviving for so long, you've forgotten you're allowed to want more. He took a breath. I needed you to see what I was offering before you rejected it. That's manipulation. Yes. Still no apology. But it's manipulation with an exit door. I'm not holding you prisoner, I'm showing you an alternative. Lila wanted to be angry, wanted to throw the hot chocolate in his face and storm out. But she was tired of being angry, tired of fighting, tired of pretending she didn't want exactly what he was offering. Safety, comfort, someone who saw her. 3 more days, she said quietly. 3 more days. And then I decide. And then you decide. He picked up his mug. Get some sleep, Lila. Adrian? He paused at the door. Thank you for the hot chocolate. His smile was small but real. Any time. When he left, Lila stood at the window and drank her hot chocolate and tried to figure out when she'd stopped wanting to leave. The next morning, Lila woke to find a box on the table by the window. Plain white, no card, just sitting there like it had materialized out of thin air. She approached it slowly, half expecting it to explode or turn into a pumpkin, or do something equally insane because nothing in this house followed normal rules. Inside was a phone, new, expensive, already set up, and a note in clean, precise handwriting. Your choice. But if you're going to stay, you should be able to contact the outside world. My number is already programmed, so is Eleanor's, and 911, just in case you decide I am actually insane and need rescuing. Lila picked up the phone, turned it over in her hands. It was a small thing, a gesture, but it meant something. He was giving her a way out, making sure she could call for help if she needed it, proving, in his own twisted way, that this really was her choice. She found him in the library, buried in reports, laptop open, phone on speaker while someone droned about quarterly projections. He looked up when she entered, held up that wait finger. Lila walked straight to the desk and held up the phone. Adrian said something sharp into his phone, ended the call, gave her his full attention. Thank you, Lila said. You're welcome. I mean it. This, she gestured with the phone. This matters. I know. He closed his laptop. You matter. 2 days left. 48 hours until she had to decide whether to stay in this beautiful cage or go back to the real world where she'd been slowly dying. Lila looked at Adrian. This man who'd watched her for years, who'd orchestrated her rescue, who wanted everything and was willing to wait for it, and realized she'd already made her choice. She just wasn't ready to admit it yet. The 5th day started like the others. Sunlight through expensive curtains, coffee waiting downstairs, the quiet hum of a house that ran on invisible schedules. But something felt different. The air had weight to it, like the calm before a storm nobody had predicted. Lila found Adrian in the garden, standing among the rose bushes with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice carried across the manicured lawn, sharp and cold in a way she hadn't heard before. I don't care what he wants. Tell him the offer expires at midnight. If he can't make a decision by then, he can watch his company burn. A pause. No. No extensions, no negotiations. He had 6 months to fix this mess himself. Time's up. He ended the call and stood there for a moment, shoulders tight with tension. Then he saw her watching and his expression shifted, not quite softening, but acknowledging her presence. Business? Lila asked, moving closer. Always. He pocketed the phone. Man running a company into the ground, refusing to admit it. Thinks if he stalls long enough, someone will bail him out. Will they? Not me. Not anymore. Adrian turned to face her fully. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let something die. That's harsh. It's realistic. Propping up something broken just prolongs the suffering. His eyes searched her face. Sometimes you have to let go so something better can take its place. Lila wondered if they were still talking about business. I need to go back, she said abruptly, to my apartment, to get my things. Adrian went very still. You're leaving. I didn't say that. I said I need my things. Clothes, books, my... She trailed off, realizing how little she actually owned that mattered. I just need to get them. I'll have someone pack everything and bring it here. No. The word came out harder than she'd intended. I need to do it myself. I need to see Marcus. Tell him something. Tell him what? Good question. What did you tell the man who'd raised you through obligation and resentment? The man who'd hit you when you were 12 and ignored you at 18? The man who drank away his pain and made it everyone else's problem? I don't know yet, but I need to face him. Need to close that door myself. Adrian studied her for a long moment. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I'm driving you. Not up for debate. If you're going back there, I'm going with you. Lila wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could handle this alone, but the truth was, she didn't want to face Marcus alone. Didn't want to walk back into that apartment and remember all the reasons she'd spent years making herself invisible. Okay. The drive across town felt longer than it should have. Adrian's car cut through traffic with the same efficiency he applied to everything else. Smooth, controlled, completely out of place in neighborhoods where cars were held together with duct tape and prayers. Lila watched the city change through the window, glass towers giving way to concrete boxes, boutiques replaced by bodegas, trees disappearing into cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences. This was her world. Had been her world. Past tense already forming in her mind without permission. Which building? Adrian asked, his voice pulling her back. The brick one. 3rd floor. Apartment 3C. She pointed to a structure that looked like it was held up by sheer stubbornness, rust stains streaking down from the fire escape, windows covered in cardboard and hope. Home. Adrian parked in a spot that probably belonged to someone else and didn't seem to care. He got out, moved around to her door, opened it before she could. I can open my own door. I know you can. He offered his hand anyway. Lila ignored it and climbed out on her own. Her legs felt shaky, like her body knew something her brain hadn't accepted yet. She was about to walk back into her old life wearing borrowed clothes and a phone that cost more than 2 months' rent. The building smelled like it always did, mildew and fried food and something chemical she'd never been able to identify. The elevator was broken, had been broken for 6 months, so they took the stairs. Adrian followed her up without comment, but she could feel his attention cataloging everything, the water-stained walls, the broken light fixtures, the door on the 2nd floor that had been kicked in and covered with plywood. This is where you've been living? Not a question. Yeah. For how long? 6 years. Since my mom died. Lila reached the 3rd floor landing, stopped in front of 3C. The paint was peeling around the door frame. Someone had scratched "Fuck the world" into the wood panel, class all the way. She knocked. No answer. He's probably passed out. Lila dug into her pocket for the key she'd been carrying for 6 years. It stuck in the lock like it always did. She had to jiggle it twice before the door opened. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it. Worse, maybe. Empty bottles lined the coffee table. The TV was on, showing some daytime talk show with the volume muted. The air smelled stale, like old sweat and older regrets. Marcus was on the couch, one arm thrown over his eyes, snoring loud enough to wake the neighbors. Except the neighbors were probably used to it by now. Marcus? Lila's voice came out steadier than she felt. Wake up. He stirred, groaned, didn't open his eyes. What time is it? Almost noon. Come back later. I'm sleeping. No. Lila moved closer, standing between him and the TV. We need to talk. Marcus finally opened his eyes. Bloodshot, unfocused, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then his gaze slid past her to Adrian, standing in the doorway like an expensive sentinel. Who the hell is that? A friend. You don't have friends. Marcus sat up, rubbing his face. He looked older than his 47 years. Gray stubble, thinning hair, skin the color of someone who hadn't seen real sunlight in months. Where the hell have you been? Mrs. Chen called. Said you had some medical emergency. Said some guy paid her for... He squinted. For a cup? What the hell happened? I cut my hand. Lila held up her palm, showing the stitches. Had to get it taken care of. And you couldn't come home? Couldn't tell me you were okay? The audacity of the question hit her like a slap. When have you ever cared if I was okay? Marcus flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? 6 years of silence broke open. You drink yourself unconscious every night. You haven't asked me about my life in months. You don't know where I work, what I do, if I'm eating. When exactly did you care? I took you in when no one else would. You took the state checks when no one else would. Lila's hands clenched into fists. The stitches pulled. Don't pretend this was about me. Your mother made me promise. My mother's been dead for 6 years, and you've been drunk for 5 of them. The words came out raw, years of swallowed anger finally finding air. You were supposed to take care of me. You were supposed to be the adult. I did my best. Your best was hitting me when I was 12 because I couldn't figure out how to make dinner fast enough. Your best was drinking away the grocery money while I ate day-old bread. Your best was ignoring me so completely I became a ghost in my own life. Marcus looked at Adrian. Did she tell you to say this? Did you put these ideas in her head? She doesn't need anyone to put ideas in her head. Adrian's voice was cold enough to frost glass. She's been living with the reality of your failures for years. You don't know anything about us. I know enough. Adrian moved into the apartment, and suddenly the small space felt even smaller. I know you've been cashing her paychecks without her permission. I know you've stolen money from her room. I know you forged her signature on loan applications to pay your debts. Marcus went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Adrian pulled out his phone, scrolled, showed Marcus something that made the older man's face drain of color. I have bank records, loan documents, security footage of you pawning her laptop. Should I continue? How did you... Marcus looked between them. Who are you? Someone who's been paying attention. Adrian pocketed his phone. Someone who's seen what you've done to her and decided it ends now. Oh, Lila, what is this? What's going on? Lila took a breath, steadied herself. I'm leaving. I came to get my things and tell you I won't be back. Where are you going? That's not your concern anymore. Like hell it's not. You're 18. You're still... I'm an adult. I can leave whenever I want. She moved toward her room, the door that had never quite closed right. And I want to leave. Her room was exactly as she'd left it. Mattress on the floor, clothes in plastic bins, books stacked against the wall because she'd never been able to afford a shelf. Everything she owned could fit in 2 garbage bags. How had she lived like this? How had she thought this was normal? Adrian appeared in the doorway. Can I help? I don't have much. Lila pulled out one of the bins, started folding clothes. Her hands shook. This is it. This is my entire life. No. Adrian crouched beside her. This was your survival. Your life starts now. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. You're choosing to leave. You're choosing better. That's all it takes. From the living room, Marcus called out, Lila, come on, don't be stupid. Whatever this guy is promising you, it's not real. You belong here, with family. Lila stopped folding, looked at the thin t-shirt in her hands, the one she'd worn so many times the collar was stretched out. He's wrong. I don't belong here. I never did. Then where do you belong? Good question. Did she belong in Adrian's mansion, surrounded by luxury she'd never earned? Did she belong anywhere? I don't know yet, she admitted, but I know it's not here. It took 20 minutes to pack everything. 2 garbage bags and a backpack. That was all she had to show for 18 years of life. Adrian carried the bags without being asked, and Lila followed him back to the living room where Marcus sat on the couch, head in his hands. I'm sorry. Marcus's voice cracked. For everything. I know I wasn't what you needed, what your mom wanted me to be. Lila stopped at the door. Part of her wanted to scream at him. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Most of her just felt tired. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix anything. Are you coming back, ever? I don't know. Honest answer. Only answer. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, I'm done taking care of you. You're on your own now. Lila, goodbye, Marcus. She walked out, didn't look back, didn't let herself think about the man on the couch or the little girl who'd tried so hard to make him love her. That girl was gone, had been dying for years. This was just making it official. Adrian followed her down the stairs, still carrying her bags like they weighed nothing. When they reached the car, he loaded everything into the trunk, then turned to face her. Are you okay? No. Lila leaned against the car, suddenly exhausted. But I will be. That's all anyone can ask. The drive back was quiet. Lila watched the city scroll past, neighborhoods shifting back toward wealth and security. She should have felt relieved, should have felt free. Instead, she just felt hollow. Do you regret it? Adrian asked, breaking the silence. Going back? No, I needed to see it, needed to remember why I can't stay. She turned to look at him. But it doesn't make this easier. Change never is, says the man who controls everything. I control business, contracts, money. He glanced at her. I can't control how you feel about any of this. Would you if you could? He considered the question. No. I want you to choose me because you want to, not because I've manipulated you into it. You brought me to your house without asking. You've controlled every aspect of the last 5 days. How is that not manipulation? Because I gave you a way out. Because I'm letting you decide. Because if you tell me right now that you want to go back, I'll turn this car around. He pulled to a red light, looked at her fully. Do you want me to turn around? Lila met his eyes. Gray, intense, waiting for an answer he already knew but needed to hear. No. Then we keep going forward. The light changed. Adrian drove. They reached the estate just as storm clouds rolled in, dark and heavy with rain that hadn't fallen yet. Eleanor met them at the door, took the bags with her usual efficiency, disappeared upstairs without comment. You should rest, Adrian said. Today was a lot. I don't want to rest. I want... Lila stopped, trying to articulate something she didn't fully understand herself. I want to know what happens next. What this actually is. What do you want it to be? Stop answering my questions with questions. Stop asking questions you already know the answers to. He moved closer, and the air between them felt charged. You know what I want. I've been clear about that from the beginning. You want everything. Yes. What does that even mean? It means I want you here, not as a guest, not as someone I'm helping, as mine. He reached out, fingertips brushing her jaw. I want to wake up and know you're safe. I want to give you everything you've ever been denied. I want to watch you become the person you were always meant to be before life tried to crush it out of you. That sounds like a fantasy. Maybe. But it's my fantasy, and I'm offering to make it real. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The first drops of rain hit the windows. I'm not who you think I am, Lila whispered. I'm not some broken thing you can fix and make perfect. I don't want perfect. I want you. Messy, complicated, real. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You think I've watched you for 3 years and don't know exactly who you are? Then you know I'm damaged. We're all damaged. The question is whether you let it destroy you or build something better from the pieces. The rain picked up, drumming against the glass like impatient fingers. One more day, Lila said. You promised me 7 days. There's still one left. There is. Adrian's hand dropped. What will you do with it? Figure out if I'm brave enough to stay. And if you're not, then I guess you'll finally have to let me go. That night, the storm hit in full force. Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the windows. Rain came down in sheets that turned the world gray. Lila stood at her bedroom window, watching nature lose control in a way nothing else in this house ever did. A knock on the door. She knew who it was before he spoke. Can't sleep? Adrian asked. I like storms. Lila kept her eyes on the window. They're honest. No pretending, just raw power. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Is that what you want? Honesty? I thought we were already being honest. Not about everything. Something in his tone made her turn. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. Intense, yes, but also vulnerable, almost afraid. What haven't you told me? That I'm terrified. The admission seemed to cost him. That I've orchestrated this entire thing because I couldn't stand to watch you suffer anymore, but I have no idea if it's going to work. That I've never felt this way about anyone, and it's completely foreign to me. What way? Like I'd burn the world down to keep you safe. Like your pain is my pain. Like I can't breathe properly when you're not in the same room. He turned to face her fully. I told you I'm obsessed, but it's more than that. You've become necessary, essential, and it scares the hell out of me. Lila's heart hammered. That's not healthy. No, it's not. He didn't move closer, didn't try to touch her, just stood there being honest in a way that felt dangerous. But it's real. And tomorrow, when you decide whether to stay or go, you should know the truth. I'm not doing this out of some benevolent desire to help you. I'm doing this because I'm selfish, because I want you here, because the thought of you leaving makes me want to destroy things. Well, what if I can't be what you need? You already are what I need, just by existing, just by being you. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. He looked raw, human, nothing like the controlled businessman who'd walked into the bakery 5 days ago. I need to tell you something too, Lila said, about why I haven't left yet, why I keep staying even though every logical part of me says I should run. Tell me. Because for the first time in my life, someone sees me, not just looks at me, but actually sees me. And it's terrifying and overwhelming and completely insane, but it's also, she searched for the right word. It's everything I've ever wanted and was too afraid to ask for. Then stay. His voice was quiet, desperate. Stay and let me keep seeing you. Let me give you the life you deserve. What if it doesn't work? What if we try this and it falls apart? Then it falls apart. But at least we tried. At least we took the chance. Thunder cracked so loud the windows rattled. The lights flickered once, twice, then died, plunging the room into darkness broken only by lightning flashes. Of course, Adrian muttered. Generator should kick in any second. But for that moment, they stood in the dark together, and Lila felt something shift inside her, some final wall crumbling, some last defense giving up the fight. Adrian? Yes? I don't want to be alone tonight. Silence. Then carefully, what are you asking? I'm asking you to stay. Just stay with me. Nothing else. Just don't make me be alone. She heard him move, felt him step closer. His hand found hers in the darkness, warm and solid. I'm not going anywhere. The generator kicked in, bathing the room in soft light. They stood there, hands clasped, looking at each other like they were both waiting for the other to break first. Come on! Adrian led her to the bed, pulled back the covers. Lie down. Lila climbed in, and he sat on top of the covers beside her, not touching beyond their joined hands, not crossing any lines, just present. Tell me something true, Lila said into the semi-darkness. Something you've never told anyone else. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I was 17 when my father died. Left me his company, his debts, his messes. I had to grow up overnight. Had to become someone who could handle all of it. And I did. I learned to control everything, manipulate every variable, ensure every outcome. He squeezed her hand. But I can't control this. Can't control you. Can't control how I feel. Can't control whether you stay or go. And it's the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. You're afraid I'll leave. I'm afraid I'll do something that makes you leave. That I'll push too hard or hold too tight or reveal just how damaged I actually am. We match then. Both damaged, both terrified. Maybe that's why this works. He looked down at their joined hands. Two broken people finding something whole in the wreckage. Lila closed her eyes, exhaustion finally catching up. One more day. One more day. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. Then you decide. But as Lila drifted toward sleep, Adrian's hand warm in hers, the storm raging outside, she realized she'd already decided. She just needed to find the courage to admit it. When she woke hours later, he was gone. But there was a blanket tucked around her that hadn't been there before. And on the nightstand, a note in that clean, precise handwriting. Breakfast at 9. We need to talk. Lila stared at those 6 words and felt her stomach drop. Tomorrow had become today. Decision time. She got up, showered, dressed in clothes that still felt like costumes. Made her way downstairs to find Adrian in the dining room, coffee already poured, food already served, expression already guarded. Sit, he said. Lila sat. Before you make your decision, Adrian started, there's something you need to know. Something that happened last night while you were sleeping. Dread pooled in her stomach. What? Marcus called the police, reported you as missing, said I'd kidnapped you. The world tilted. What? They came here around 3 a.m. I showed them you were safe, gave them your phone number so they could verify. You were sleeping, so I handled it. His expression was unreadable. But there's more. Marcus is threatening to cause problems, claims I coerced you, that I'm taking advantage of you. That's insane. He doesn't even care about me. He cares about control, and he's losing it. Adrian set down his coffee cup. So I need you to understand something. If you choose to stay, there will be complications, legal questions, public attention. People will have opinions about us, about this situation. It won't be easy. And if I leave, then it all goes away. You go back to your life. Marcus backs off. Everything returns to how it was. He met her eyes. Except you. You'll never be the same. Neither will I. Lila's hand shook. You're giving me an out. I'm giving you the truth. Because I meant what I said. I want you here. But I want you to choose it knowing exactly what you're choosing. Show me. Show you what? Everything. The complications, the attention, whatever happens if I stay. Show me the worst of it so I can decide with open eyes. Adrian pulled out his phone, opened something, slid it across the table. Marcus filed a police report. It's being reviewed. There will probably be an investigation. They'll interview you, interview me, dig through our lives. And when they find nothing criminal, it'll become gossip. Fuel for people who love watching rich men and poor girls. Lila read the report, her stomach churning. But beneath the fear was anger. Marcus was trying to control her even now, trying to decide her fate because he couldn't stand to lose his punching bag. What happens if I stay? We face it together. We tell the truth, that you're an adult who made a choice, that I offered you safety and you accepted. Adrian leaned forward. But Lila, you need to be sure. Because once you commit to this, once you say you're staying, I'm going to protect that choice with everything I have. I'm going to make sure no one can take you away. Not Marcus, not the police, not anyone. That sounds obsessive. It is. No apology, just truth. But it's also what you need. Someone who will fight for you the way no one ever has. Lila set down the phone, looked at this man who'd upended her life, who'd confessed his obsession like it was a gift instead of a warning, who was giving her every reason to run and still hoping she'd stay. I need to make a call first, she said. Adrian handed her his phone without question. Lila dialed a number she'd memorized years ago. It rang twice before someone picked up. Mrs. Chen? It's Lila. I know. I'm sorry. No, I'm safe. I'm calling to quit. Effective immediately. I know I'm leaving you short-staffed, but yes, I understand. Thank you for everything. She ended the call, handed the phone back, looked at Adrian. Okay? Okay? I'm staying, not for a week, not to try it out. I'm staying. The words came out steadier than she felt. Because you're right. I deserve more than what I had, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. Adrian went very still. You're sure? No, I'm terrified. I think this might be the worst decision I've ever made, or the best, and I have no idea which. Lila stood, moved around the table, stopped in front of him. But I'm choosing it anyway. I'm choosing you, whatever that means. He stood slowly, like sudden movement might shatter the moment. Whatever that means is that you're mine now, and I take care of what's mine. That should sound creepy, but it doesn't. No. Lila reached up, touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. It doesn't. Adrian's control cracked. He pulled her close, not quite a kiss, but close enough that she could feel his breath against her lips. I'm not letting you go. Ever. You understand that? Yes? I'm going to be overbearing and controlling and probably drive you crazy. I know. And I'm going to give you everything. The world. Whatever you want. You just have to ask. I don't want the world. Lila closed the distance between them, pressed her lips to his in a kiss that tasted like promises and danger. I just want this. Whatever this is. When they broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is obsession. This is possession. This is me refusing to let you suffer ever again. Then I guess I'm possessed. Good. He kissed her again, deeper this time. Years of watching and waiting, finally finding outlet. Because I'm keeping you. And Lila, for the first time in her life, let herself be kept. The police interview happened 2 days later in Adrian's study with a detective who looked like she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by money or mansions. Detective Sarah Reyes sat across from Lila with a notepad and the kind of neutral expression that probably worked well in interrogations. Miss Hart, I need you to understand that you're not in any trouble. We're just trying to establish the facts. Reyes clicked her pen. Your guardian filed a missing persons report claiming Mr. Voss took you against your will. Is that accurate? No. Lila kept her voice steady. Adrian sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. I came here voluntarily, after you cut your hand at work. Yes. And Mr. Voss was there, at the bakery, after closing. Reyes glanced at her notes. Can you explain why? Lila looked at Adrian. He gave a small nod. Your story to tell. He came to check on me. I'd injured myself and he insisted I get medical attention. You knew him before that night? No. So a stranger walked into your workplace after hours and convinced you to go with him to a hospital. Reyes's tone suggested she'd heard worse lies. Then to his home, where you've been staying for the past week. When you say it like that, it sounds suspicious, Reyes finished. That's because it is suspicious, Miss Hart. Rich man, young woman, guardian claiming coercion. You can see how this looks. I can see how Marcus is trying to manipulate the situation because he's angry I left. Lila felt heat rise in her chest. Did he tell you about the bruises? About the times he hit me when I was 12? About stealing my paychecks? Reyes's expression shifted slightly. He mentioned you had a difficult relationship. Difficult is one word for it. Lila held up her palm, showing the healing stitches. I've spent 6 years taking care of a man who couldn't take care of himself. Working 70-hour weeks to keep the lights on while he drank away every dollar. I was drowning. Adrian gave me a way out. And what exactly does Mr. Voss get out of this arrangement? The question hung in the air like smoke. Adrian's hand found Lila's under the table, squeezed once. My company, he said quietly. My care. My choice to stay. Reyes studied them both. You understand how this appears? Wealthy, older man, young woman with no resources, power imbalance. I'm 25, Adrian interrupted. Hardly older. And the power imbalance exists everywhere she goes. At least here, it's being used to help her instead of hurt her. That's a convenient rationalization. It's the truth. Adrian's voice went cold. You want to investigate me? Fine. Pull my records, interview my staff, check every transaction. You'll find I've done nothing illegal. Lila is an adult who made a choice. The fact that her guardian doesn't like that choice doesn't make it kidnapping. Reyes turned back to Lila. Is anyone forcing you to stay here? No. Are you afraid of Mr. Voss? No. Has he threatened you in any way? No. Lila leaned forward. Detective, I know this looks strange. I know it's unconventional, but I'm here because I want to be. Because for the first time in my life, someone is putting my needs first. If that's a crime, then arrest us both. But Reyes closed her notepad. I'm not arresting anyone, but I am going to file a report recommending continued monitoring. And Miss Hart, if you ever need help, if the situation changes, you call me. She slid a card across the desk. Day or night? I will. After Reyes left, Lila slumped in her chair, exhausted. That was awful. That was necessary. Adrian picked up the detective's card, studied it. She's doing her job, making sure you're safe. I told her I was safe, and she doesn't know if she should believe you. He set the card down. Women in situations like this often say they're fine right up until they're not. She's being cautious. Situations like this, you mean abusive relationships? I mean relationships with power imbalances, which, to be fair, this is. Lila turned to look at him. Do you think you're abusing me? I think I'm obsessed with you in a way that probably isn't healthy. I think I've orchestrated your life with surgical precision. I think if someone looks at this objectively, they'd see red flags everywhere. He met her eyes. But I also think you're here voluntarily. that you're choosing this, and that I'd rather cut off my own hand than hurt you. That's intense. I'm an intense person. He stood, held out his hand. Come on, you need air. They walked the estate grounds, following paths that wound through gardens Lila was still discovering. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. It should have been peaceful. Instead, Lila's mind kept circling back to the interview, to Reyes's questions, to the way the detective had looked at her like she was a victim who didn't know it yet. What if she's right? Lila asked suddenly. What if I'm making a mistake? Then you correct it. You leave. You start over. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face her. But I don't think you're making a mistake. I think you're making the first real choice you've had in years. How can you be so sure? Because I've watched you. I know the difference between someone being coerced and someone finally choosing themselves. He touched her face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. You're not a victim, Lila. You're a survivor who's tired of surviving. And you're my reward. I'm your choice. There's a difference. Lila wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Because he was right. She wasn't here out of fear or force. She was here because she wanted to be. Because the alternative was going back to a life that had been killing her slowly. Marcus isn't going to stop, she said. You know that, right? He's going to keep pushing, keep causing problems. Let him. Adrian's expression hardened. I've dealt with far more dangerous people than a drunk man with a grudge. He can file all the reports he wants. All he's doing is proving why you needed to leave. Well, what if he escalates? Then I escalate harder. Not a threat, a promise. No one hurts you. Not him, not anyone. That's not negotiable. They walked back to the house as darkness fell, and Lila tried to quiet the voice in her head that kept asking if she'd traded one cage for another. But the cages were different, she told herself. This one had windows. This one had choice. This one had someone who looked at her like she mattered. That had to count for something. The next morning, Lila woke to find Adrian already gone. A note on his pillow. Business. Back by dinner. Eleanor has instructions. Instructions. Like she was a child who needed supervision. Irritation flared hot in Lila's chest as she dressed and headed downstairs. Eleanor was in the kitchen preparing what looked like enough food to feed a small army. Good morning, Miss Hart. Mr. Voss wanted to make sure you had everything you needed today. What I need is to not be managed like a project. Lila poured herself coffee with more force than necessary. Where did he go? I'm afraid I can't say. Business matters are confidential. Of course they are. Lila took a scalding sip. And what are these instructions he left? He suggested you might enjoy the library or perhaps the pool. He also mentioned you like to read, so he had some books delivered. He bought me books. Several, actually. They're in the study. Lila set down her mug and headed for the study. Sure enough, stacked on the desk were at least 30 books. New releases, classics, genres she'd mentioned liking once in passing. He'd been listening, cataloging, building a profile of her preferences like she was a stock he was researching. She should have been touched. Instead, she felt claustrophobic. The next week fell into a pattern that felt too choreographed to be real. Adrian left for work each morning with a kiss and instructions for Eleanor. Lila spent her days exploring the estate, reading, trying to figure out who she was supposed to be in this new life. They had dinner together every night, conversations that ranged from business to philosophy to nothing at all. He was attentive, considerate, present in a way no one had ever been before. But he was also always in control, always deciding, always 3 steps ahead. I enrolled you in some online courses, Adrian mentioned one night over dinner. You mentioned wanting to finish your degree. I found a program that offers flexible scheduling. Lila set down her fork. You enrolled me without asking? I thought you'd be pleased. I would be pleased if you'd asked me first. You said you wanted to go back to school. I said I'd thought about it. There's a difference between thinking about something and committing to it. Adrian frowned. I don't understand. I'm trying to help. I know you are, but helping means asking what I want, not deciding for me. You're right. He said it immediately, no defensiveness. I'm sorry. I'll cancel the enrollment. When you're ready, we'll look at programs together. The apology should have satisfied her. Instead, it just highlighted how easy it was for him to reorganize her life with a phone call. How little agency she actually had despite his insistence that everything was her choice. "I need a job," Lila announced the next morning at breakfast. Adrian looked up from his laptop. "Why?" "Because I can't just exist here like some kept woman. I need purpose, structure, something that's mine." "What kind of job do you want?" "I don't know, something normal. Coffee shop, bookstore, I don't care." "You don't need to work. I can provide—" "That's exactly the problem." Lila stood, restless energy making her pace. "You provide everything. Food, clothes, housing, entertainment. I don't contribute anything. I'm just here, taking up space in your perfect house." "You're not taking up space, you're—" Adrian stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "What do you want?" "I want to feel useful. I want to earn something. I want a life that's mine, not just a life you've built for me." Adrian studied her for a long moment. "Okay. Okay? Okay, find a job. I won't interfere." "Really?" "Really." He closed his laptop. "On one condition." Of course there was a condition. "What?" "You let me make sure you're safe. Background checks on employers, security when you're traveling, basic precautions. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you." It was reasonable. Lila knew it was reasonable, but it still felt like another way he was managing her life. Fine. She found a position at a bookstore 3 days later. Small, independent, the kind of place that smelled like paper and possibility. The owner, Margaret, was in her 60s and asked exactly 3 questions during the interview. Could Lila work a register? Did she like books? Could she start Monday? Adrian kept his word. He didn't interfere. But Lila noticed things. The way Margaret's daughter suddenly had a college scholarship. The way the bookstore's chronic plumbing problems got fixed overnight. The way a nasty review that had been tanking their online reputation mysteriously disappeared. "Did you buy the bookstore?" Lila asked that night. "No." "Did you do something to help it?" Adrian didn't look up from his dinner. "I may have made some calls." "You said you wouldn't interfere." "I said I wouldn't interfere with you getting the job. I didn't say anything about helping the business succeed." He met her eyes. "Would you rather I let them struggle? Let Margaret lose everything?" "I'd rather you let things happen naturally." "Nothing happens naturally. Everything is influenced by someone, somewhere. At least when I do it, I'm trying to help." Lila wanted to argue, but she was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of trying to figure out where Adrian's care ended and his control began. The bookstore became her refuge. 4 days a week, she shelved books and helped customers and pretended she was just a normal girl with a normal job. Margaret didn't ask questions about where Lila lived or who she lived with. The other employee, a college student named Jamie, just talked about books and music and completely normal things. It lasted 3 weeks before Marcus showed up. He walked in on a Thursday afternoon, looking worse than when she'd last seen him. Thinner, more haggard, the kind of desperate that made people unpredictable. Lila was behind the register when she saw him. Her whole body went cold. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk." He moved closer, and she caught the smell of alcohol. Not falling down drunk, but enough to make him dangerous. "Been trying to call you." "I blocked your number." "Yeah, I figured." He leaned against the counter. "Look, I know things got ugly, but you're still family. We should talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "Don't I at least get to apologize? To explain?" Margaret emerged from the back room, took one look at the situation, and positioned herself near the phone. "You should leave," Lila said quietly. "I'm working." "Working," Marcus laughed, bitter and sharp. "Right. Playing store with your rich boyfriend's money. That's not working, Lila. That's being a pet." "I said leave." "Or what? You'll call him? Have him throw money at me until I go away?" Marcus's voice rose. "That's what he does, right? Solves all your problems with his wallet? Makes you forget where you came from?" "I haven't forgotten anything, including every time you hit me, every time you stole from me, every time you made me feel worthless. I was trying to help you, trying to make you tough. You were hurting me because you were hurt." Lila's hand shook. "And I'm done being collateral damage for your pain." Marcus slammed his hand on the counter. "You ungrateful—" The door chimed. Adrian walked in with two men in suits who had security written all over them. "Step away from her." Adrian's voice was deadly calm. Marcus turned, took in the situation. "Of course. Your keeper shows up right on time. I'm going to say this once." Adrian moved between Marcus and Lila, a wall of controlled fury. "You're going to leave. You're not going to come back. You're not going to contact Lila again in any way. And if you do, you'll find out exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine. You can't threaten me." "I just did." Adrian pulled out his phone, showed Marcus something that made the older man's face drain of color. "I have documentation of every crime you've committed against Lila. Theft, assault, fraud. I've been building a case for months. One call to the district attorney, and you'll spend the next 5 years in prison. You're bluffing. Try me." Adrian's expression could have frozen oceans. "Walk away now, and I'll let it go. Keep pushing, and I'll bury you." Marcus looked at Lila. "This is what you want? This man who controls everything, who threatens people?" "He's protecting me. Something you never did. I raised you. You survived me. There's a difference." Lila stepped out from behind the counter, stood next to Adrian. "Leave. Don't come back. We're done." For a moment, Marcus looked like he might argue. Then he saw Adrian's expression and thought better of it. He left without another word, the door chiming cheerfully behind him. Lila's legs gave out. Adrian caught her, held her steady while Margaret rushed to lock the door and flipped the sign to closed. "I'm sorry," Margaret said. "I should have called someone sooner." "You did fine." Adrian's attention was fully on Lila. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." Lila's whole body shook. "How did you know to come?" "Security alert. I have someone watching the store." "Of course you do." She wanted to be angry, but all she felt was exhausted. "You're always watching." "Yes." No apology. "And I always will be, because men like Marcus don't stop until someone makes them." They left Jamie to close up early and drove home in silence. When they reached the estate, Adrian led her straight to his study, poured her a drink she didn't want but accepted anyway. "You can't keep doing this," Lila said. "Doing what?" "Swooping in to save me. Fighting my battles. I need to be able to handle things myself. You were handling it. I just made sure it ended quickly." Adrian sat across from her. "Would you rather I'd stayed away? Let him escalate?" "I'd rather have the chance to stand up for myself without you orchestrating everything." "I wasn't orchestrating. I was protecting." "It's the same thing with you." Lila set down the glass with more force than necessary. "Everything is about control, about managing variables, about making sure nothing goes wrong. And that's bad? It's suffocating." The word burst out of her. "You won't let me fail, won't let me struggle, won't let me be anything except safe and cared for and completely dependent on you." Adrian went very still. "You want to struggle?" "I want to know I can. I want to know that if everything fell apart, I could handle it. But I'll never know that because you won't let anything fall apart." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need space. I need to know I can exist without you managing every aspect of my life." "How much space?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications. "I don't know," Lila admitted, "but I can't keep living like this. Like I'm a problem you've solved instead of a person you're with." Adrian stood, moved to the window, stared out at the grounds he controlled just like he controlled everything else. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I've been doing this wrong." "What?" "Thinking I could fix you. Thinking I could give you everything, and that would be enough." He turned to face her. "But you don't need to be fixed. You need to find yourself. And I've been so busy protecting you that I've been preventing you from growing." "I didn't say—" "You don't have to. I can hear it." He moved closer, crouched in front of her chair. "I'm obsessed with you. I've admitted that. But obsession isn't love if it doesn't let you breathe, and I've been holding you so tight I'm suffocating what I'm trying to protect." Lila's eyes burned. "I'm not leaving. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking what you need, really need. Not what I think you need, what you actually want." "I want—" Lila stopped, tried to articulate something she barely understood herself. "I want to be with you, but I want to be my own person too. I want to contribute, to matter, to know that I'm choosing this every day instead of just being chosen." Okay. Adrian took her hands. Then that's what we'll do. You want independence? Take it. Want to make your own decisions? Make them. Want to fail and pick yourself back up? I'll watch from the sidelines and catch you only if you ask. Can you really do that? I don't know, but I'll try. Because losing you to my need to control everything would be worse than anything else. They sat there for a long moment, hands clasped, both realizing they'd hit a wall that money and obsession couldn't fix. I love you, Adrian said quietly. I know that's probably too soon to say, and maybe sounds insane given everything else. But it's true. And if loving you means giving you room to breathe, then that's what I'll do. Lila's breath caught. You love me. Yes. That's terrifying. I know. He smiled, small and real. But it's also true. Lila leaned forward, rested her forehead against his. I think I might love you too, which is definitely insane. We'll be insane together. With boundaries? With boundaries, he agreed. It wasn't a solution, it was a start. And maybe that was enough. The change didn't happen overnight. Adrian didn't suddenly become a different person, and Lila didn't magically gain confidence she'd been lacking for 18 years. But they tried. Messily, imperfectly, with setbacks that felt like failures until they learned to call them growth. Adrian started asking instead of deciding. Small things at first. What did Lila want for dinner? Which movie should they watch? Did she want company or space? Questions that seemed insignificant but represented a fundamental shift in how he saw her, not as someone to be managed, but as someone to be considered. Lila started speaking up instead of accepting, pushed back when he overstepped, said no when she needed to. It felt wrong at first, like she was being ungrateful or difficult, but Adrian never flinched when she contradicted him, never made her feel small for having opinions. And slowly, the wrongness faded into something that felt like freedom. 3 weeks after the confrontation in the study, Lila came home from the bookstore to find Adrian in the kitchen again, cooking. But this time he looked frustrated, sauce splattered on his shirt, vegetables cut in uneven chunks. What are you making? Attempting to make, he corrected, scowling at a pot. Pasta. It's harder than it looks. Why not just have Eleanor make dinner? Because you said you wanted normal. Couples cooking together is normal? He gestured to the mess. Apparently I'm terrible at it. Lila bit back a smile. You run a multi-million-dollar empire but can't make pasta. Different skill sets. He stirred the sauce with more aggression than necessary. I'm starting to think this was a mistake. Move over. Lila bumped him aside with her hip, took the spoon. The sauce was salvageable. Barely. You're supposed to stir gently. You're not negotiating with it. I negotiate with everything. I've noticed. She adjusted the heat, added some herbs from the rack. But food doesn't respond to intimidation. They cooked together in comfortable silence, Adrian following her instructions with the same focus he applied to business deals. When they finally sat down to eat, the pasta was slightly overcooked and the sauce was too thick, but it tasted better than anything Eleanor had ever made. This is terrible, Adrian said. It's perfect, Lila countered. It's objectively mediocre. It's ours. She twirled pasta around her fork. That makes it perfect. Adrian looked at her across the table, something soft in his expression. I'm learning that perfection isn't actually what I want. What do you want? This. Overcooked pasta and bad sauce, and you looking at me like I'm not completely insane. You are completely insane. But you're here anyway. Yeah. Lila reached across the table, found his hand. I am. The first real test came a month later when Lila enrolled in online classes. Not the ones Adrian had selected, but ones she'd chosen herself after researching programs and figuring out what she actually wanted to study. Psychology. Because she wanted to understand how people survive trauma, how they rebuilt themselves after being broken. She waited until after dinner to tell him, nervous despite his promises about letting her make her own choices. I enrolled in school. Adrian looked up from his laptop. That's great. Which program? State University, online, psychology major. She rushed through the details before she could lose her nerve. It's affordable, well-reviewed, and I qualified for financial aid, so I'm covering most of it myself. You don't have to cover it yourself. I know you can, but I want to. I need to know I can do this on my own. Adrian was quiet for a moment, and Lila could see him fighting every instinct to take over, to solve the problem, to make it easier. But then he nodded. Okay, but if you need anything, textbooks, supplies, whatever, you'll tell me. I'll tell you. And if the financial aid falls through, Adrian? Right, sorry. He smiled, but it looked strained. I'm trying. I know you are. Lila moved to sit on the arm of his chair, and I appreciate it, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, he corrected, pulling her into his lap. Easy doesn't mean anything. Hard means I'm choosing you over my instincts. Your instincts are to throw money at problems until they disappear. Basically, yes. His arms tightened around her waist. But I'm learning that some things are worth more when you earn them yourself. Classes started 2 weeks later, and Lila discovered she was terrible at psychology. Or rather, she was terrible at the academic version of it. Dense textbooks and theories that felt disconnected from real human pain. She'd expected to understand trauma because she'd lived it. Instead, she found herself struggling with concepts that reduced complex emotions to diagnostic criteria. She failed her first exam. Adrian found her in the library at 2 a.m., surrounded by textbooks and notes, her laptop screen glaring accusingly. Come to bed. I can't. I have to figure this out. Lila gestured at the mess. I failed. I studied for weeks and I still failed. So you'll do better next time. What if I can't? What if I'm not smart enough for this? Adrian pulled up a chair, sat facing her. You're smart enough. You're just learning something new. That takes time. Everyone else seems to get it. Everyone else isn't you. You learn differently because you've experienced differently. He picked up one of her textbooks, flipped through it. These theories were written by people studying trauma from the outside. You've lived it from the inside. That's not a disadvantage. It's a different perspective. The professor doesn't see it that way. Then the professor is an idiot. Adrian closed the textbook. But that doesn't mean you give up. It means you find a way to translate what you know into what they want to hear. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it's also what education is. Learning to speak the language of whatever world you're trying to enter. He stood, held out his hand. Come on. You need sleep. You can fight this battle tomorrow. Lila let him pull her up, lead her to bed. As she drifted off, she heard him on the phone in the next room, voice low but insistent. When she woke the next morning, she found a note. I didn't interfere, but I did call in a favor. Check your email. The email was from a tutoring service specializing in psychology students. They'd had a cancellation and could fit her in twice a week. The rate was listed as scholarship supported, which Lila knew was code for Adrian paid for it. She should have been angry. Instead, she just felt grateful. Thank you, she said when she found him at breakfast. For the tutor. I didn't get you a tutor. I just made sure you knew one was available. Adrian didn't look up from his tablet. What you do with that information is your choice. You're splitting hairs. I'm respecting boundaries while still being helpful. There's a difference. Is there? I'm choosing to think so. He finally looked at her. Are you angry? Lila considered it. Was she? He'd interfered, but gently, had offered help without demanding she take it, had found the line between controlling and supporting and actually stayed on the right side of it. No, I'm not angry. Good, because I'll probably do things like this again. I can't watch you struggle without trying to help, but I'm learning to help in ways that don't undermine you. That's growth. That's exhausting, he corrected, but worth it. The tutor helped. Lila's grades improved. She started understanding the material not by memorizing theories, but by seeing how they connected to real life, to her life, to all the broken people trying to survive in a world that kept breaking them. The second test came when Marcus showed up at the estate. Security stopped him at the gate, but he made enough noise that Lila heard it from inside. She found him arguing with 2 guards, drunk and belligerent, and making threats that ranged from legal action to physical violence. I'm calling the police, one guard said into his radio. Wait. Lila stepped forward before she could second-guess herself. I'll talk to him. Miss Hart, Mr. Voss specifically said, I know what he said, but this is my decision. She looked at Marcus through the iron bars. You have 5 minutes. Then they call the police. The guards reluctantly opened the gate, enough for Marcus to squeeze through. He stumbled, caught himself, and Lila caught the full force of how far he'd fallen. Clothes filthy, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking with withdrawal or rage, or both. "You look terrible," she said. "You look expensive." Marcus gestured at her clothes, her hair, everything that had changed. "He's turned you into one of them. I'm still me, just a version that doesn't have to eat garbage and wear rags. You think you're better than me now." "I think I'm better than I was." "There's a difference." Lila crossed her arms. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want my niece back. I want you to stop playing house with some rich psycho and come home where you belong." "I don't belong there. I never did. Your mother would be ashamed." The words hit like a slap, but Lila held her ground. "My mother would be relieved. She'd be glad I found a way out, that I'm not spending my life taking care of someone who can't take care of himself." "I took care of you." "You used me. There's a difference." Lila felt something shift inside her, something that had been wound tight finally loosening. "I forgive you." Marcus blinked. "What?" "I forgive you. For the hitting, for the stealing, for all of it." The words came easier than she'd expected. "Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying it around. I'm tired of letting what you did define who I am. I don't want your forgiveness. I'm not giving it for you. I'm giving it for me." Lila stepped back. "Your 5 minutes are up. You need to leave." "And if I don't?" "Then they call the police, and Adrian makes good on his threat to press charges, and you go to prison." She met his eyes. "Is that really what you want? To destroy what's left of your life out of spite?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. She could see him weighing options, calculating odds, trying to find an angle that didn't end with him losing everything. "He's using you," Marcus said finally. "You know that, right? Rich men don't save poor girls out of kindness. They do it because they want something." "Maybe. But what he wants is for me to be happy. And what you wanted was for me to be useful. I'll take my chances with him." She turned and walked away, didn't look back even when Marcus called her name. The guards escorted him off the property, and Lila stood in the foyer, breathing hard, shaking with adrenaline and something that felt like victory. Adrian found her there 20 minutes later. He didn't ask what happened, just pulled her close and held on. "I talked to him," Lila said into his chest. "Without you, I handled it." "I know, security called me. I was 3 minutes away if you needed me. But you didn't come. Because you didn't need me to." He pulled back, looked at her. "How do you feel?" "Like I just closed a door that's been open for 6 years. "Good. That's good." He kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you." The words shouldn't have mattered so much, but they did. Because for the first time, they weren't coming from someone who needed something from her. They were coming from someone who just wanted her to succeed. 6 months passed like pages turning. Lila's grades improved. The bookstore promoted her to assistant manager. She and Adrian fought sometimes, usually about him overstepping or her not asking for help when she needed it. But they learned to fight productively, to communicate instead of assume, to choose each other even when it was hard. Marcus didn't come back. Lila heard through Eleanor's network that he'd entered rehab paid for by an anonymous donor. She knew it was Adrian, didn't ask about it, just added it to the list of ways he protected her without needing credit. On a Tuesday morning in April, almost a year after the night in the bakery, Adrian came to breakfast with a small box. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a key, plain silver, attached to a keychain with the estate's address engraved on it. "I don't understand. I already have a key." "That's a guest key. This is yours." Adrian's voice was careful. "I had it made. Your name is on the deed now. Half of this place belongs to you." Lila stared at the key. "You're giving me half your house. I'm making official what's already true. This is your home. I want you to know that legally, permanently, nobody can take it from you." He reached across the table, found her hand. "You've been choosing to stay. I wanted you to know you could stay even if you stopped choosing me." "That doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense. If something happened to me, if we fell apart, if any of 1,000 things went wrong, you'd still have this. Security, safety, a place that's yours. Lila's eyes burned. You're planning for us to fall apart? I'm planning for every possibility. That's what I do. His grip tightened. But I'm also betting on us. I'm betting that we won't fall apart, that we'll keep choosing each other even when it's hard, that what we have is strong enough to survive reality. You're insane. I've never denied that. He smiled. But I'm your kind of insane and you're mine, so I'm making it official. With a house deed. With a house deed. He pulled out another box, smaller. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious. And with this, if you want it. Lila's breath caught. Is that a proposal? Yes. Adrian's voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly. I'm asking you to marry me, not because I need to own you or control you or lock you down, but because I want to choose you in front of everyone. I want to make promises I intend to keep. I want to build a life that's ours, not mine, that you happen to live in. We've only been together a year. I've been watching you for 3. I've been certain for longer than that. He opened the box fully. But I'll wait as long as you need. A year, 10 years, forever. The timeline doesn't matter. The choice does. Lila looked at the ring, then at Adrian, then back at the ring. A year ago, she'd been invisible, dying slowly in a life that had been killing her. Now she was here, being offered everything, and the terrifying part was that she wanted it. Ask me again in a year, she said finally. Adrian's face fell for just a moment before he schooled it back to neutral. Okay. Not because I don't want to, but because I want to know I'm choosing you because you're right, not because you're safe. I want to know I could survive without you before I promise to stay with you. That's fair? Is it? You look disappointed. I am disappointed, but I respect it. He closed the ring box. A year. I can wait a year. And if I say no then you say no, and I'll be devastated. But I'll survive. He stood, came around to her side of the table. Because that's what you need to know you can do. Survive. And you can't know that if I'm always there catching you before you fall. When did you get so wise? When I realized that keeping you meant letting you go. He kissed her, soft and sure. A year. But I'm keeping the ring. Why? Because I'm an optimist. And because even if you say no, I want to remember that I asked, that I took the chance, that I loved you enough to risk losing you. Lila wrapped her arms around him, pressed her face into his shoulder. I'm not going to say no. You don't know that. I do, but I need to be sure. I need to know I'm whole enough to share a life instead of just living in yours. Then get whole. I'll be here when you do. The year that followed was the hardest and best of Lila's life. She finished her first year of college with decent grades, got promoted again at the bookstore, started volunteering at a women's shelter, using her own experience to help others who'd survived what she'd survived, built friendships with people who knew nothing about Adrian's money or influence, who liked her for who she was instead of what she had. Adrian kept his promise. He gave her space, supported without smothering, celebrated her victories and let her handle her defeats. They fought less and laughed more. Built traditions and inside jokes and the kind of comfortable intimacy that came from choosing each other every day. And when the year was up, when Adrian asked again on another Tuesday morning with the same ring and the same box, Lila said yes. The wedding was small, just Eleanor, Margaret from the bookstore, a few of Adrian's business associates who'd become friends, and Detective Reyes, who'd kept checking in and eventually become someone Lila trusted. No grand ceremony, no spectacle. Just promises made in front of people who mattered. Marcus sent a card. No signature, just 3 words. I'm getting better. Lila kept it, tucked in a drawer with other pieces of her past. Not to forget, but to remember how far she'd come. On their wedding night, lying in bed in the house that was now legally theirs together, Adrian traced the scar on Lila's palm from that night in the bakery. I've been thinking about that cup you broke. What about it? If you hadn't dropped it, if you hadn't cut your hand, I might never have had an excuse to talk to you. You might still be invisible. Invisible to you, you mean? I was always visible to myself. Were you? He turned to face her fully. Or had you gotten so good at disappearing that you'd forgotten you existed? Lila considered it. Honest answer? Maybe a little of both. And now? Now I'm aggressively visible. I take up space and have opinions and demand to be seen. I've noticed. He smiled. It's my favorite thing about you. Your favorite thing is that I'm difficult? My favorite thing is that you're real. Difficult, messy, complicated, real. He pulled her closer. Perfect would bore me. You challenge me. Is that what you want? To be challenged? It's what I need. Someone to push back when I overreach, to call me on my control issues, to choose me not because I've made it easy, but because you actually want to. I do want to, for the record. Lila kissed him. Even when you're insufferable. Especially when I'm insufferable. Especially then. They fell asleep tangled together, and Lila thought about how strange life was. How a broken cup and a bleeding hand and a stranger's obsession had led to this. How the worst night of her old life had become the beginning of her new one. Some people would call it a fairy tale. But fairy tales didn't include police investigations and family drama and the hard work of learning to be a person instead of a survivor. Fairy tales didn't include fights about boundaries and struggles with school and the messy reality of two broken people trying to build something whole. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. 3 years later, Lila graduated with honors. Adrian was in the front row, probably the only person there in a suit that cost more than some people's cars. When she crossed the stage to accept her diploma, she looked out at the audience and thought about the girl she'd been. Invisible, exhausted, convinced she didn't deserve more than scraps. That girl was gone. In her place was someone who took up space unapologetically. Someone who had opinions and boundaries and a life she'd built through hard work and second chances. Someone who'd learned that being saved wasn't the same as being healed, and that real healing required doing the work yourself. After the ceremony, they went to the bookstore where Margaret had made a cake and Jamie had hung a banner that said, Dr. Hart, eventually. The shelter volunteers showed up, and some of her classmates, and Eleanor brought champagne that probably cost more than the entire party combined. I'm proud of you, Adrian said when they had a moment alone. You always say that, because it's always true. He touched her face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. You've become exactly who you were meant to be. And who's that? Someone who survived and didn't let it make her bitter. Someone who was broken and used the pieces to build something stronger. Someone who took a terrible situation and turned it into purpose. I had help. You had support. There's a difference. Support is what I gave you. The work was all yours. Delilah looked around the bookstore, at the life she'd built, the people she'd collected, the future she'd created. Do you ever regret it? Taking a chance on some random girl from a bakery? Every day. She pulled back. What? I regret that I didn't do it sooner, that I watched you suffer for 3 years before I found the courage to act, that you had to break before I could help you rebuild. His voice was raw. But do I regret knowing you, loving you, building this life with you? Never. Not once. Not even close. Good answer. It's the only answer. He kissed her, soft and sure. Come on. Margaret's cutting the cake, and you know how she gets when people don't eat her baking. They rejoined the party, and Lila let herself be celebrated. Let herself take up space. Let herself be visible and complicated and imperfectly real. Later that night, back at the estate that was home in every sense of the word, Adrian found her on the balcony overlooking the gardens. The same gardens where he'd once stood talking coldly about business, where she'd first started understanding who he really was beneath the control. What are you thinking about? He asked. That cup, the one I dropped. Still? Always. She leaned into him when he wrapped his arms around her. Do you think things happen for a reason? Or do we just make meaning out of chaos? Does it matter? Maybe not. But I like to think that night meant something. That breaking that cup broke me open enough to let someone in. And here I thought I was the one who was obsessed. You started it. Fair point. Adrian rested his chin on her head. For what it's worth, I think we create meaning. We take random events and string them together into stories that make sense. The cup was just a cup. But what we did with what came after, that's what matters. So you don't think we were fated? I think we were lucky. I think 1,000 things could have gone differently, but they didn't. And we chose to make something good out of an improbable situation. Lila turned in his arms to face him. Do you know what I've learned? Tell me. That being saved isn't the same as being whole. That you can't fix someone else's broken pieces, you can only support them while they learn to fix themselves. That love isn't about possession or protection or control. It's about choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Is that what this is? Us choosing each other? That's exactly what this is. She kissed him. And I choose you. Today, and tomorrow, and every day after. Not because you saved me, but because you let me save myself. You're welcome, Adrian said, but his voice cracked slightly. For what? For teaching me that control isn't the same as care, that letting go is sometimes the strongest thing you can do. That obsession without respect is just another word for destruction. They stood there on the balcony as the city lights flickered below, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something that refused to be broken. It wasn't perfect. They still fought, still struggled, still had days where old patterns tried to resurface. But they'd learned to catch themselves, to course correct, to choose growth over comfort. Because that was the real story. Not that a rich man saved a poor girl, not that obsession turned into love, but that two damaged people looked at each other and decided they were worth the work, that they could be broken and still be worthy, that their pasts didn't have to define their futures. And when people asked Lila how she'd gone from invisible to impossible to ignore, she never mentioned the money or the mansion or the fairy tale elements everyone wanted to focus on. Instead, she talked about choice, about agency, about learning to save yourself while letting someone support you, about the difference between being chosen and choosing yourself. Because the truth was, Adrian hadn't saved her. He'd given her the space and resources to save herself. And she'd done the work. The hard, painful, necessary work of becoming someone who could stand on her own 2 feet while still choosing to lean on someone else. That was the story. Not perfect, not simple, not the fairy tale everyone wanted it to be, but real, honest, human. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.